Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here. I am doing a pretty in-depth analysis of the RWBY Volume 5 intro. I just did my second viewing reaction for the premiere, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll have that as the end annotation for, or one of the end screens for this video. Went through the whole first episode, did like a secondary reaction, so it was kind of a bit more in-depth than like an initial reaction because I was talking through some of the elements. Definitely watch the episode first because obviously you will get spoilers. That's obvious, but sometimes the internet is weird and people don't use their brain cells. So just a fair warning, if you decide to check that out, watch the episode first. But this I wanted to do because every once in a while, I don't think I did it for the last volume, but that was because they released it and it was like the stuff with Jean with his armor, and I was like, well, I can't do it because I want to wait to see his armor in the episode. I didn't want to spoil it for myself, so I never ended up doing like an analysis for the last volume intro by itself. But I definitely wanted to do one for this one because I thought it was showing us a lot of what's to come, not just story-wise, but just show-wise, like the feeling of the series. Even some of the dialogue I feel like is kind of hinting towards how things are starting to go back to what they once were. So I definitely wanted to do a bit of an analysis for this video and kind of just go in depth with it, have some fun with it. I'm going to do like an initial reaction first, and we kind of just go through it, see it all again, because I've really only watched it like, I guess technically like two or three times. I think I may have gone through the intro again the first time I watched the episode. But yeah, we're going to go through this and kind of just get real in depth with it, and I'll talk about my theories based off of what we see here, kind of what I hope to see, what I think may or may not actually happen. So we'll just get things going, turn it up a bit, even though there'll probably be some copyright issues. First off, sounds great. So like the first couple of lines where it says back to the fairy tale, back to the show, that makes me feel like we're headed back to the feeling of the first couple of volumes mixed with the devastation of the end of Volume 3. And I love that idea because Volume 4 was definitely the new life of RWBY, the new version of what this series is going to be. And then this is giving us everything that has come from that devastation, but also we're going back. Like we got Adam coming back, which is great. I'm going to just stop talking about Adam. Every time he comes up, I'm just like, need more Adam. Need some of that. Can't wait for that interaction as well. So both those interactions should be crazy. Very curious what they're going to do with her character as well. But all of this is great. Getting to see the action. Maybe we'll get to see this fight happen. Maybe not. Who knows? I'll talk about that as we kind of go through more in depth. But all the visuals here. I hope that Yang gets to beat on Mercury. Like we had that, I think, since Volume 2. That was the kind of character setup where it's like, here's the villains and here's who the heroes fight. Here's like their nemesis. Okay, so great freaking intro. I love this new opening. I love the music of it. Like I said, some of the dialogue in here is definitely great. So I will go back just to the very beginning here. And so I'm going to turn it up just so you guys can hear it. So that, like I said, I feel like is kind of giving us a little bit of both. Like I said, we had RWBY Volume, I'd say 1, 2, and 3 really, going up into like the last couple of episodes when things really hit the fan in Volume 3. Volume 1 and 2 were kind of nice for everybody. That's kind of like the point. You're like, even in the opening to Volume 3, like, when it falls, like that's why that thing is so dark, which is definitely my second favorite. This will be the day, still my number 1. This will fall, or when it falls is number 2. This might actually be my number 3. I like the last volume's opening, but I didn't like love it. I was like, okay, like it's catchy, but I'm a sucker for like hard rock stuff. So this already has it just with the instruments and how it's just a harder song compared to the last volume. But also just like the way it sounds in general. But still, but I don't hate any of the openings, but this is probably going to end up being like my number 3 song out of all 5 openings we've had so far. But that first part, those first lines, back to the fairy tale in the show, it's, like I said, it's kind of going back to some of the happier stuff, but it's obviously it can't just be like, poof, it's all happy again. We've had that devastation. We've had the city fall. We've had characters die, maybe permanently, because we still don't know what was going on with Jean and like the weird dream stuff that RWBY was having with Pyrrha. So who knows exactly what that means? I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I don't want to get my hopes up just because I just don't want to get my hopes up. Honestly, consider once the show got dark, I was just like, people are probably just gonna die from now, and I just gotta accept that, and that's just how that is life, even in RWBY now. So that's just how it's gotta be. But I like that element. I like the idea that we're officially blending it, because the last volume was like, here's the new style, here's literally the new visual style of the show, and here's the new essence and feel and everything. It was very different than what we had because everyone was split up. And now it's like the reuniting of all these characters and the reuniting of the new versions of these characters after this time skip. We have Weiss, who's very different. We have Yang, obviously very different as well. Blake is now more interactive with her family, who she hasn't seen in forever. And then you have RWBY, who is with Ranger and Crow, as well as Oscar now. And then I would assume all kind of working together to teach him and figure out exactly what's going on with his character, who he may or may not be Ozpin's son / the new maiden. Oh crap, I just watched the episode. I think summer is destruction. I think it was fall. I think Ozpin may or may not be the fall maiden or the spring maiden, whichever one was for knowledge. I think that may have been him. So I like that idea. So I'm curious how that's all going to play out. But I feel like that's kind of what they're saying just in those first couple of lines. And so as we kind of go through it, and I'm going to skip over some stuff here just to get to the visual elements of the characters popping up. So the first thing is Lionheart, and I totally can't remember this guy's name. I know it starts with a W because in the episode it comes up with like the floating holographic W where he's like, oh, we have to work on your improvisation. So this scene right here with this guy popping up is like, obviously, for anyone who may not have gotten the reference already, Lionheart is the cowardly lion. Like, he's the cowardly lion, and my theory for him is that, much like the Wizard of Oz, he will eventually gain his courage, but once again, going with the super dark theme, I'm like, that might get him killed. I just don't know. Maybe it'll work out for him, and he helps the heroes, and he's like, this is what's been happening, and I'm sorry, I just didn't have the courage to fight back against Salem and her lieutenants. It could work, and the heroes help him, or he could tell them, and they do something, and they're able to make something work. But sadly, he kind of sacrificed himself. I just don't know. It's just been super dark, so that's all I can say. I just have to assume at some point it's going to go to that area where he does get the courage to fight against the villains. It just may or may not work for him. So we'll see how that plays out with his character. Then after that, of course, we have Adam, who I've been waiting for 100 million years. We got to see him in Volume 3. Finally, made me super excited. It was super insane, and he kind of scared me a little, and I was like, I love him even more now. So he is officially back, new costume and everything, so that's very cool. And then, don't remember this dude's name. I don't remember any of Salem's lieutenants' names outside of the characters we already knew. So of course, Cinder, Emerald, and then Mercury. Those are the only three I actually remember. And then, because he was a really intense part of the last volume, Tyrion, I do remember. I remember his name, but the other two guys, they didn't really have, they had their little moment where they were talking at the table, and then there's someone missing as well who we still haven't actually met yet. So I don't remember their names, but he is working with the White Fang, so we have him there with Adam, and I know that in the trailer they go talk with, someone told me her name, and it's based off of Shere Khan, but I can't remember exactly what her name is. So, but him working with the White Fang, it shows kind of how Salem's kind of utilizing her lieutenants to kind of stretch out to everything, because they already utilized the White Fang before, and now they're continuing to do that because they already did it, with Cinder and how they used her abilities. Basically, as a maiden, they, kind of showed how that was already playing out, and then, when Salem was officially introduced and we get to see her lieutenants, now we get to see the inner workings of that, where we have, this guy is controlling, Lionheart, and now this guy is working with the White Fang, and he's, beside Adam. So I think that's very interesting that they kind of show that off, and it does make me wonder how that relationship is going to continue to play out, just because of how the White Fang technically feels about humans, and how Salem kind of fits into whatever the F she really is, because who knows. I'm curious how that dynamic will play out, where we have this guy who may or may not be human. We don't really know like his whole deal. Um, how he may or may not actually be Faunus, and how, if he's human, how that relationship will play out with Adam and the rest of the White Fang. Specifically Adam, who fell in line because of power, and that's why the White Fang is in line right now. But I'm sure that tension will be there if this guy is like another human coming along just like Cinder did, using his power to force them to follow behind Salem. So see how that plays out. Moving on from Adam and the big dude, we get to see, Blake and Sun for a quick second, and then we get to probably my favorite part in the whole freaking trailer, and that's Cinder and Summer. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know what to expect from it, but it's two maidens at this point, one of which being Cinder, who is still coping with her powers based on, how they have this little moment here. I would have to say that that's her confidently, dealing with her abilities. So that, that's good for her. I was about to say that's good, but she's the bad guy. One of the bad guys. So it's not necessarily good, but it's good for her. It does a lot for some character development. So she's doing better. Maybe we'll actually get to hear her talk. That would be cool if she actually spoke this volume. We got to hear a little bit, if you watch RWBY. But, Cinder, as far as the main series, she was real messed up. And she was not exactly talking too much. She had like her little whisper mode going in the last volume. So I think, based on how she looks in, this kind of stare down, the showdown with the Summer Maiden, it's kind of like, all right, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to take you down. I'm ready to kill you and take the powers of a second maiden all within myself and have the abilities of two maidens. Or, kind of do what their plan was, which is probably have Cinder take over as one of the maidens, and then have probably, some backup for Cinder, and then like kill the Summer Maiden, and then it's like, look at that person, and then that's who, gets the powers. Because I don't know if they touched on that. It's been a minute, because that was really like volume 3 sort of deal, where they went through all the exposition and explanations of it. So I don't remember if they specifically said someone can or cannot have the powers of two maidens at once. But clearly the plan is to take on and defeat Summer, and then have her powers transferred to, one of the villains. So after that, of course, we have Yang and Raven, and I don't really know what to really expect from this one, if I'm being totally honest. Like, we have Yang, who is going through the toughest time ever. After getting her arm cut off, she suffered all of the last volume, and she had to kind of struggle through that, and she's recuperated. So in this volume, she's going to, well, it seemed like she was headed towards RWBY. That's kind of how they made it seem at the end of the last volume, where she was like, coming, little sis. I think that's actually what she said. But now it's kind of like her ideas of kind of transition towards, I want to figure out what the deal is with my mother. And in this moment, we have Yang, who is upset. Like, it starts off, and I kind of like the way it starts off, where it kicks off and it's Yang upset and Raven kind of just looking away. But then when they turn towards each other, Yang stays the same. Like, she still looks upset. But when it cuts to, well, it doesn't cut, but when you look at Raven, not only is she insanely stark white in this, which I find odd because I felt like she had like some sort of actual human skin. She looks like Salem here, like just chalk white. I just noticed that, like, that's why I brought that up. But she's cracking a smile, where it's like, I'm just happy to be around my daughter and have her in my life, and who knows what that means and what she's going to try to do to utilize that. Moving on, once again, we have Weiss and really the entire team going up against Salem. Not just going up against her, but also reuniting. I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get there, but it's really awesome to see them running together. It's actually a great sequence. And then, Salem is like the giant looming threat over them. Although it would be interesting if she showed up and it turns out she can literally get that tall. I'd be like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I thought that was like just a visual representation of evil. And it's like, nope, she can grow 20 feet tall. I'd be like, oh, well, there's a twist. So who knows? Maybe that can actually happen. That wouldn't really shock me, considering we know nothing about this woman. Like, she could potentially have, she could go like full boss mode. It's like, I've absorbed the powers of 18 Grimm. Who knows? She's just a villain. She's a mystery villain up in the air. But it wouldn't really shock me if she could like absorb whatever like those weird Grim fountains are that create the Grim, she could actually absorb that power, which it seems like she already has anyway because she has black veins. So it wouldn't surprise me if she could like make herself taller because of that, or anything like that. But it should be a good season. I thought this was definitely a great opening. Love the music. The visuals, I would say, as far as everything we see, there are definitely moments in here, like I said, everything I went over pretty much, showing, the use of the characters, the groupings of the characters, and the interactions that we can only hope to actually get this volume. That's something that I decided officially this volume. I will no longer get my hopes up that a fight that we see in the opening will actually happen. Happened last volume with the Adam Blake thing. That never happened. Even going back to volume 2, we never had, there are characters that don't even show up, and that's not just like interaction stuff like for villains showing up. Even certain heroes, like Sun's actual team is like shown off for the first time in the volume 2 opening, and they are technically in volume 2. It's like a giant aerial shot, and you see, I wish I could remember their names, but you see the two of them like off on the side, and they don't actually come in for any dialogue or anything like that. So, I decided officially, no longer will I get my hopes up to be like, okay, that fight was shown in the opening, that means it's happening. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. I'm sure we'll get some epic fights, but that doesn't mean we'll get the fights that we see. I hope we get the interactions. We have to at least get the interactions with Raven and Yang and Cinder and Summer. That's just my hope for it. My camera's going to cut out, so I'm going to do a quick cut real quick right here before it cuts out automatically on me. So like I was saying, as far as the interactions, I feel like we have to at least get the Summer, Cinder / Yang Raven interaction. I don't know what that means, how much time that would take up with the story, because you have to have characters travel from one location to the other. Yang is already on her way there, but who knows how many episodes that'll take before we get that story. Because even with characters where it's like point A to point B, there are a lot of stories happening, so we don't know when we'll see a certain story. Like it just takes time, because we'll have this episode where it's like, oh, that's been introduced, and then it'll be 3 episodes, maybe 4 episodes later, where it kind of cycles back to that story because we have RWBY, Weiss, Blake, and then Yang. So with that being the case, if that's how they officially decide to cycle through the characters this volume, that'll take a lot of time. And especially with the fact that when they focus on RWBY, that focuses on like the overarching thing, because you have Crow, you have the mystery with Oscar and Ozpin, so the answer's there. Lionheart is a part of that with one of Salem's lieutenants. So there's a ton of story. If they focus on RWBY, they are focusing on like 4 things at once already. So there's a lot to do just focusing on like, here's what RWBY's up to, and then going to the rest of Team RWBY. It's like, okay, well, you go to Blake. Once again, there's quite a few characters. That's, Blake is like the White Fang, and there are quite a few characters involved in that, story arc and all that stuff. And then you have Weiss, who's on a personal journey, which I really love, and I'm very excited to see how that plays out. And then Yang. So definitely looking forward to this volume. Of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about the opening, what theories you guys have. Like I said, what will and will not actually come true from what we saw from this, and in general, just how you guys are feeling about the volume so far. With this coming out like right after episode 2, definitely put spoiler tags, because I know some people only watch on YouTube. I watch on Rooster Teeth, and by the time I upload this, I don't know, it might not be free for me just yet. So just put a spoiler tag if you're doing anything based off of theories from episode 2, just to be safe for anyone who only watches on YouTube, or people like me who aren't first members. So just in case, just put a spoiler tag there. But as far as the first episode, it's been a week. It's officially up on YouTube. Just be careful if you are going to end up reading the comments that you might get spoilers for the first episode and the second as well. But definitely want to read your comments down in the comment section below, so please put them down there if you guys are interested. And of course, thanks for watching.